Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I want to take the chance to go through MMA history, and I have compiled the 10 biggest missed fight opportunities I think would have made the UFC boo-hoo dollars, okay? Now, this list is in no particular order. This is in the order that they came to me. Now, the one thing that I kept myself as a stipulation is I tried not to use any fighter more than once. Like, here's the thing. Conor McGregor is on this list. There's a lot of missed opportunities when it comes to Conor McGregor's career. We'll get to that when we talk about what I believe is the biggest missed opportunity in Conor's fight career, and I'll talk about the runner-ups. Same thing with somebody like Ronda Rousey. There's a few fights Ronda Rousey could have taken, but there's one that I think is the biggest missed opportunity. The point I'm trying to make is I didn't want to make this entire list Conor McGregor and Jon Jones, when in all reality, there's only one fight that us as the fans would have loved to see at that time. And before we get started, all I gotta say is this video suggestion actually comes from you guys in the Discord for this channel. The link to it is in the description down below, completely free. If you want to do something to help this channel, click the share button. Don't even share the video. Just copy the link. It tells the algorithm that people actually want to share this video, and you don't have to go through the embarrassment of showing people the stuff that you like to watch in your free time. And with that out of the way, let's get started with number one. No particular order, otherwise I'm going to get crucified. Israel Adesanya versus Yuri Prochazka at light heavyweight. No. I'm aware that this can still happen, but I think the odds of it happening at light heavyweight the way that it would have gone down is very unlikely. Let me explain something to you. Israel Adesanya, when he went up to fight Jan Blachowicz, I think that was one of the biggest fumbles. I think that was the biggest fumble of his career. I think that was more damaging to his career outlook at that time than the Strickland loss. Don't get me wrong, the Strickland loss, that's rough. Okay? In my mind, if Adesanya wants to be the GOAT of middleweight, he has to beat Strickland. I'm not saying Strickland's better than Adesanya, but I don't think Anderson Silva would lose to Strickland. That's all I'm really saying here. So, the two biggest fumbles in Adesanya's career, honestly, is the Strickland loss and going up to light heavyweight at that time. Jan Blachowicz is a big, mean, Polish-looking guy that does not check leg kicks, going up against a guy who, don't get me wrong, is a big dude, but there's a difference between being big at middleweight and being big for light heavyweight. And we saw that in the Jan Blachowicz fight. Wasn't particularly amazing. I think the greatest thing that happened in that fight, the most impressive thing, was the amount of glazing that Joe Rogan was hitting Adesanya with that entire fight. Listen, I like Joe Rogan. Okay? I understand that there is such thing as biased commentary. That normally doesn't bother me, but holy crap. That is when the discussion started. I remember when biased commentary got brought up after that fight. I actually implore you, watch, I believe it is free on the UFC channel, and just listen to the commentary, and you tell me who do you think won that fight based off the commentary alone. The reason that I'm going to say Yuri Prochazka is the biggest missed opportunity is I want you to think about it like this. Alex Pereira is the first dude to defend the belt successfully against a light heavyweight fighter since Jon Jones against Dominic Reyes. Okay, the reason that I'm bringing that up is Jan Blachowicz' only successful title defense was against Israel Adesanya. What you could have done, and that might have even expedited what happened, because the fight after that, Jan Blachowicz fought Glover Teixeira and loses to Glover. You see where we're going with this. Then, Glover fought Yuri. This is in a pretty sort of period amount of time. Israel Adesanya was still a champion at this time, defending the belt against Jared Cannonier. There is a timeline where Adesanya was still champion at 185, never went up to challenge for the light heavyweight title. We know he would have beaten every other contender aside from Alex Pereira. Strickland was not in the title conversation at that time. So there's a scenario where if he just waited one more year, actually I think it was 9 months, you could search that up, he could have fought Yuri Prochazka for the light heavyweight title, and I think that's an easier fight than a Jan Blachowicz. Stylistically, I mean. And Yuri Prochazka versus Israel Adesanya, I'm sorry, that is a barn burner matchup at 205. and at 185. I know now Yuri's talking about going down a weight class. Israel Adesanya versus Yuri Prochazka is the first fight that I'm going to be putting on this list. No particular order, because there's one on here that I would actually put at the bottom in terms of how much I would actually care. Next up, Jose Aldo versus Aljamain Sterling. No. Understand. I'm aware why this one didn't happen, but all I'm saying, in a timeline where Merab, I'm going to tell you this right now. I'm starting to come around to liking Merab. There's this one Georgian fan that I like, that follows my community, that is going to be mad when I say this. If the UFC knew Merab wasn't going to take a title shot against Aljamain Sterling after the Jose Aldo fight, because that's what it was. Jose Aldo versus Merab Dvalishvili was a number one contenders match at the time. If the UFC knew that Merab wasn't going to take a title shot against Aljamain Sterling, Merab would have never been given the chance, and they would have just given it to Aldo. Like, that is the reason why when this channel started, I really disliked Merab. And I still don't like how that played out. Because he not only beat Jose Aldo, he spoiled his retirement. Understand, the dude who told the UFC press that Jose Aldo was going to retire was Merab Dvalishvili. I'm sorry. I understand you're socially awkward, probably have a little bit of autism. Dude, you can't. What are we doing? You just don't do that. Dude, you can see Jose Aldo actually just start getting pissed, but he just got done having the cardio session of his life, trying not to get taken down by Merab Dvalishvili. Also, side note, Jose Aldo did better than Henry Cejudo and Petr Yan did against Merab Dvalishvili. We know Merab's good. Jose Aldo did better than both of them. So all I'm saying, after watching the Merab fight, I think Jose Aldo versus Aljamain Sterling at that time would have been a great fight. I understand Petr Yan beat Jose Aldo, but at that time, Aljamain was champion off the knee. So I think Jose Aldo versus Aljamain Sterling at that time, at the time that the Merab fight happened, I think that fight would have been great. That is a missed opportunity in my mind that got spoiled because Merab beat Jose Aldo and didn't want to take a title shot. Next fight on our list, Cyborg versus Ronda Rousey. This one would have been at the bottom of the list if I did this as a top 10. Because, can we be real? Cyborg would have won. Understand, it's very well known now. And I understand Ronda Rousey is making headlines now. She's throwing, this big pity party over because she made one mistake against Holly Holm. The entirety of the MMA fan base doesn't think she's the GOAT of women's MMA. I'm not even kidding you. Ronda Rousey believes that because of the Holly Holm fight, that disqualifies her from being the GOAT of women's MMA. No. What Amanda Nunes did to you disqualifies you from that. Understand, Amanda Nunes is the GOAT of women's MMA because of what she did to you and everybody else. And the other thing I'm going to bring up, the UFC, Dana's admitted that they tried their hardest to keep Cyborg away from Ronda Rousey. There's a quote that Cyborg will never fight Ronda Rousey for her entire career. And then when they tried to finally make the fight, they tried to make Cyborg go down to an unnatural weight class that she actually suffered some legit health problems trying to make the weight. Because when you're going down, I understand, to somebody who doesn't do it, 10 pounds, that doesn't seem like a lot. When you're already cutting 30 pounds to make a weight, and then they want you to do an extra 10 pounds to make an unnatural weight for your build, yeah, no, it's rough. And the fact that she tried to do it, and the UFC just said, yeah, nah, I know you tried your hardest, but Ronda Rousey's better looking than you. That is the reason. Understand, Ronda Rousey was the Conor McGregor of women's MMA for two reasons. One, she had a decent style that was kind of entertaining. She had good judo, and she was hot at the time. Understand, that was it. Pretty privilege is a thing in women's MMA. Paige Van Zandt, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. I'm trying to think, even Rose for a little bit. Let's be real here. Tracy Court, name 5 women's MMA fighters, okay? You see what I mean. Amanda Nunes just was too damn good. Ronda Rousey versus Cyborg. I only want that fight just because I want to see Cyborg destroy Ronda Rousey, and I want to see her excuse about that. That's a missed opportunity in women's MMA, and that is the only women's MMA fight on here that I believe should be counted that isn't going to happen. Next up, we have Hamzat. Hamzat's on this list, and listen, This is where I had to make up the rule over no fighter can be on here more than once, because there's a lot of fights that I think were a missed opportunity. I have a little slant right here for Kamaru Usman or Leon Edwards at welterweight. I'm aware that he already fought Usman. It was at middleweight on 10 days' notice. I'm going to say this right now. Khamzat Chimaev's... The fumbles of Khamzat Chimaev need to be studied. Not enough people bring up that Khamzat Chimaev went from being the biggest star prospect in the UFC. That's what he was. Like, understand, Khamzat Chimaev, for a time, was the UFC's boogeyman. Everybody who had a platform for this sport talked about how scary Khamzat Chimaev was going to be. People weren't talking about whether he was going to become a champion or a double champion. We were actually talking about, we were huffing the copium that Khamzat Chimaev could become a triple champion. The first ever. A simultaneous one. And you know, all he had to do, understand, he beat Gilbert Burns. I understand, like, it was a pretty close fight. I had Khamzat winning that. Khamzat beats Gilbert Burns. That was a number one contenders bout, but they didn't expect Khamzat to be as big as a star as he was. They throw him up the rankings. And then they give him the easiest number one contenders bout I have ever seen in my time. The only other fight that I would argue is an easier number one contenders bout was Ronda Rousey making her debut and then fighting for the title. Okay? That's the only other one. Khamzat Chimaev was gifted Nate Diaz for a number one contenders match to boost his stardom, retire Nate Diaz, because this was when Nate Diaz wanted to fight Jake Paul. They gifted him this fight. All you had to do was make weight. You didn't make weight, and they kicked him out of the division. Understand, like, people phrase it in other ways. He got kicked out of welterweight for that. And Khamzat Chimaev had to fight Kevin Holland. And I know some people will like talk about, well, the Kevin Holland fight does mean something. No, it doesn't. Okay? The Kevin Holland fight means almost nothing. Especially when we gave you an easy number one contenders match where if you won that, you would have fought Leon Edwards or Kamaru Usman at the time. And you would have become a welterweight champion, because I do believe you do beat Leon Edwards. I think Kamaru Usman at 170 is the only person that gives you trouble. Especially if it's in a 5-round fight with a full camp. But I think that's a missed opportunity, and that's going to be the fight on this list. Next up, Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar. Yeah, no, I understand it's a gimmick fight. I understand it's a money fight. It's still a missed opportunity. A little bit of a story time. This is also how Ariel Helwani got blacklisted from MMA media. So if you guys aren't aware of the story, or if you guys are aware, here's my brief description of what happened. UFC 200 is rolling around. Daniel Cormier's fighting on the card. They needed something to pull the fans to it, so the UFC did a collaboration with the WWE and a few other management groups. They formed, I forget what it was called, but it was like I think they called it the Combat Sport Dream Team. They were negotiating a return fight for Brock Lesnar against the then champion Daniel Cormier. That's what they were trying to do. Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar. Okay? This was already planned out. They planned to do a cool announcement at the actual event. And then Ariel Helwani had somebody on the inside, somebody on the Combat Sport Dream Team, that knew that this was happening. And then, before the event even happened, he decides to leak it on the internet and make a whole new story out of it, get all the clicks, get all the engagement that you could ever want. Okay? And then, after that, that is why Ariel Helwani, Dana was pissed. People lost their livelihoods for that. The person that leaked it lost his job. And Ariel Helwani, for leaking it, got blacklisted from MMA media, and that's why he's no longer allowed at any press conference. And now he's working over at ESPN. But here's the funniest part about it. For anybody who's wondering, wait, so he works at ESPN, but why isn't he allowed to go to the press conferences? Dana White has a restraining order that Ariel Helwani can never be in the same room as him. So whenever Dana White is at a press conference, Ariel Helwani can't even be in the same premises as him. I think that's funny. I understand it's petty. That's kind of a baller move. I'm not even going to lie. And if you want to know my opinion on the whole, does Ariel Helwani deserve to get blacklisted for that? This is all I got to say. It's not like you leaked information that the UFC was doing something illegal and that was your reporter's duty. This is like me This is like me leaking a movie trailer and not facing any repercussions for it. Like, I understand why you did it. Do I think the UFC went a little bit harsh on you? Yeah. But let's not pretend like you were uncovering some horrible stuff that the UFC was doing. No, the UFC wanted to do something cool for the fans, and you decided to spoil the surprise. That's what happened. And ever since then, that's one of the reasons why the Daniel Cormier versus Brock Lesnar fight never materialized, and it later just kind of went into the wind like a wet fart. It was pretty sad. I think Daniel Cormier would have gotten it. I think he would have gotten it pretty easily. You can actually still see the Brock Lesnar versus Daniel Cormier promo that they saw. Just look it up on YouTube. Yeah, missed opportunity. So come on, Ariel. Why'd you have to do that? Next up, Mighty Mouse. Just Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse versus Figaro. Mighty Mouse Cejudo trilogy. This is what I mean by there's a few fighters that have multiple fights on the list. Mighty Mouse is one of those guys. I do believe the trading of Mighty Mouse overall does... Understand, this is what happened, okay? The UFC, whether they realize it or not, they traded having the best flyweight division in the UFC for Ben Askren. Inadvertently, this is what they got. You tell me if this is a good trade, okay? Would you sacrifice flyweight for Jorge Masvidal and the BMF title? That is what happened. Inadvertently, they never planned it on happening, but they traded Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren. And I don't care what you say, the UFC does not have the best flyweight division in the UFC because they traded Mighty Mouse. Mighty Mouse is so hilariously, clearly the GOAT of flyweight that the UFC doesn't even try to bring up stats anymore unless it's something like Roy Val has the best striking average in flyweight history. That is the one thing that he barely beats Mighty Mouse in. Mighty Mouse is either the number 1 or number 2 or 3 in every single record in the flyweight division. Like, he is so clearly the GOAT of flyweight that whenever they try to diminish it, it just backfires because at this point, everybody knows he's the GOAT. Because Mighty Mouse, even though he's no longer in the UFC, I would argue he's one of the most well-known personalities that is also an MMA fighter on the internet. Like, he has a very successful channeling gaming channel. Like, I'm impressed by that. But yeah, no, I just have written here, Mighty Mouse versus NA champion. I think, give him a Cejudo trilogy. TJ Dillashaw. Shit, Dominic Cruz would have been a fun fight. Brandon Moreno, Figueredo, Pantoja. All of those guys would have been great fights for Mighty Mouse, and I think he would have taken it. Next up, now this is where we're going to be getting into, I understand this is not in order, but these, to me, are the biggest missed opportunities. Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou. It's a missed opportunity. It's never going to happen. I understand they're both technically still in combat sports, and every single one that I'm going to name here not everyone can still happen. These are fights that I believe will never happen. Because, for one, the UFC has absolutely zero reason to do a crossover event with the PFL. They're not going to do it. This would be a charity event for the PFL. Even the PFL knows this, and they're lobbying on, well, this is the fight the fans want to see. Yeah, because you have one fighter that the fans actually know by name. Name 3 other fighters that fight in the PFL. Point received, okay? Jon Jones versus Francis Ngannou will never happen purely because the UFC is not trying to give clout to any other MMA. Dude, Dana White calls PFL PFLator. You got 10-7 at a press conference. You ain't coming back from that. It doesn't change the fact that Francis Ngannou versus Jon Jones would have been an amazing fight. You got the baddest man on the planet versus, you can say, the GOAT of combat sports. He's either number 1 or number 2, and that's purely because of juice. But, yeah, doesn't change the fact, missed opportunity. I think Jon Jones would have taken it, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Jon Jones versus Stipe is the last fight. I don't even think they're going to do Aspinall. And that was the only other fight I would have put for Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall. I understand it could happen. I understand Jon Jones is now talking about how he would do it. He's not doing it. He's getting a bag from Stipe and retiring. And he's going to let Tom Aspinall become the GOAT of heavyweight. And then he's going to talk about how, man, it's the same, dude. I would have definitely fought Tom Aspinall. And the fans are going to forget about it. That's what's going to happen. Next up, we're moving into our top 3. Conor McGregor versus Jorge Masvidal for the BMF title, okay? The BMF title is very contingent here. And that's why it's on the list, because even if they do decide to have Masvidal fight Conor McGregor, which I don't think they're going to do, it means exponentially less, like even from an optics standpoint, if there's no BMF title. I understand the BMF title is a made-up title. It is. They made it up for Nate Diaz and Jorge Masvidal, and they resurrected it for the Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje fight because they needed a main event. That is why that is a thing. Doesn't change the fact that it's a fun title. But Conor McGregor, there's also a lot of Conor McGregor fights that I think can still happen, but if they don't, they also are going to be on here for missed opportunities. Off the top of my head, Conor McGregor versus RDA, missed opportunity. Conor McGregor versus Max Holloway 2, missed opportunity. Conor McGregor versus Charles Oliveira, missed opportunity. Nate Diaz 3, Khabib Nurmagomedov 2. Literally, just about every fight that you can name for Conor is a missed opportunity because it would have done numbers. But Masvidal, when he had the title, huge missed opportunity. And I'm telling you this right now, they were planning on making that fight for a time at least. Maybe they weren't 100% on it, because that's why Conor McGregor went up to fight Donald Cerrone. They were trying to hype up a welterweight fight. And listen, I remember when this fight was being talked about, people were saying that Masvidal would do terrible things to Conor McGregor. Now that we're at this point, I think Conor might have gotten it done. Okay? Like, honestly, I think Conor could have gotten it done. Maybe not 100%, but that's all I'm saying. To our number 2, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. Yep, there's a fight that I would rather see than this one. Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov is the most cursed fight in MMA history. People have made whole YouTube videos, like 30 minutes to an hour long, dedicated to every little thing that had to go wrong for this fight not to happen. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. 4 times this fight was canceled. At certain points in the process, it was canceled. Whether it being missed weight again, or Tony Ferguson getting heel hooked by a cord. I'm not even kidding you. Like, that's something that actually happened. Huge missed opportunity. It was the fight that cost Tony Ferguson his career. Honestly, yeah, I think the Khabib fight... Yeah, the Khabib fight did cost him his career because he later fought Justin Gaethje, and that started the downfall of his entire career that has now got him to the point that he lost to Paddy Pimblett. So, yeah, the Khabib fight cost Tony Ferguson his career for a whole lot of reasons, and is one of the biggest missed opportunities in MMA history. Dude, like, they were talking about making them 2 tough coaches, but at this point, I don't even think the season would happen. It would be so cursed. But yeah, Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, yeah, it has to be number 2. Number 1, again, I understand I said the list isn't in order, but this is my when I got the suggestion for this on Discord, I was about to type this fight and not even make the video, because in my mind, this is the biggest missed opportunity in the entirety of combat sports history. And that is, of course, Prime Anderson Silva versus Prime GSP. The fact that this fight didn't happen is one of the greatest missed opportunities, if not the greatest missed opportunity in the entirety of combat sports. Understand that if Anderson Silva beat GSP, he would have been the second or first greatest MMA fighter of all time. If GSP would have beaten Anderson Silva, he would have been the undisputed GOAT of combat sports. Like, understand, we're already neck and neck with GSP and Anderson Silva for the sheer amount of time that they both... GSP, Anderson Silva, and Jon Jones. If GSP was able to envelop Anderson Silva's aura, GSP would still be above Jon Jones now. That is how crazy it would have been. Because the biggest gripe that people have about GSP in his career was the fact that when he did win the middleweight title, he beat Michael Bisping. I like Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping might be one of the weakest champions. Not ever. But he wouldn't be one of the strongest champions. That's all I'm saying. He's a middle of the road champion. People wanted to see GSP versus Luke Rockhold. That was the original fight that was being talked about. Then GSP versus Michael Bisping. Then they wanted GSP versus Robert Whittaker. Another missed opportunity. But I think we can go straight to the core of the problem. And the biggest missed opportunity that I do believe even like matchmakers in the UFC have talked about, it was Anderson Silva versus GSP. Why did this fight not happen? You want me to tell you why? Because The UFC was worried that GSP versus Anderson Silva was going to end the stardom of another fighter. Understand, the UFC was terrified that they were going to have the same problem as boxing. Now that they look at it, they're like, well, Anderson Silva or GSP would still have been a star if they were to lose the double champ fight. It wouldn't have harmed them too much. But at that time, that's what they were worried about. They were worried that if GSP beat Anderson Silva, it would kill the hype of Anderson Silva, or if Anderson Silva beat GSP, vice versa, it would kill the hype of GSP. That is why that fight never was made. Money was never put aboard, and they'll never say it, but also I do believe they were worried that GSP would become too big of a star, because GSP did a Francis Ngannou before Francis Ngannou did it, and that is he threatened free agency at that time. And I believe he was one of the first fighters to make it guaranteed that when you became a champion, you got paid like big money. That's why he was so well paid as a champion and reigned for very long. But GSP versus Anderson Silva, huge missed opportunity, biggest missed opportunity in combat sports in my opinion. You tell me in the comment section down below, what is the biggest fight that the UFC missed out on in the comment section down below. Please consider a like, comment, subscribe, really helps me in the algorithm. And if you want to have a video suggestion, leave it in the comment section, but I'm telling you, it's easier if you just go to the link to the Discord in the description down below and just join. It's free. There's no problem. And put it in the fight suggestion tab. You'll see it when you get there. And with that out of the way, I hope you're all having a great day. Adios, guys.